I'm staring at the email on my phone, and my hands won't stop shaking. It's from Forbes. The email says they want to feature me in their 30 under 30 list. They want to talk about my startup, my inspiring recovery journey, and how I overcame adversity to build something remarkable. The problem is, none of it is true, or rather only half of it is true. And the half that everyone believes, the part my parents spent the last 18 months telling everyone at church, at the country club, at every Thanksgiving dinner and backyard barbecue, that part is a complete lie. My name is Ashley Chen, and I'm 28 years old. I live in a 4-bedroom colonial in the suburbs of Charlotte, North Carolina. I have a golden retriever named Bentley, a 401k that my accountant says is doing pretty well, and a business called Clarity Digital that generates about $1.2 million in annual revenue. I also have parents who, when faced with a moment that embarrassed them, decided to tell everyone in their social circle that I'd spent 6 months in an inpatient rehabilitation facility dealing with a substance abuse issue. Now Forbes is calling, and they believe that story. They believe I'm some kind of recovery hero. The thing about lies is that they're like viruses. You think you're containing them in one place, but then they mutate and spread, and suddenly your entire life is infected. And the worst part? I didn't even know my parents had told that lie until I overheard them at the country club 3 weeks ago. Let me back up. Let me tell you what my life actually looked like before everything went sideways. 2 years ago, I was happy. Genuinely, deeply happy. Not the Instagram kind of happy where everything looks perfect in the photos, but you're crying alone in your car. Real happy. I had moved back to Charlotte after college because my parents made it clear that staying in New York was impractical, and because, honestly, I missed home. I'd gotten a business degree from UNC Chapel Hill, and I'd spent 2 years working at a digital marketing firm in Manhattan. But the commute was killing me, and my salary, while decent, wasn't enough to justify the $2,400 a month rent in a shared apartment in Astoria. So I came home. I moved into a rental house on Wendover Avenue. Nothing fancy, but it was mine. I had my own space, my own life. My parents, Michael and Karen Chen, were thrilled. Not because they missed me, exactly, but because they could now incorporate me back into their carefully curated social circle. They live in Myers Park, this insanely expensive neighborhood where everyone knows everyone, and everyone is very interested in everyone else's business. My dad runs a commercial real estate firm. My mom sits on the boards of 3 different nonprofits, mostly because she enjoys the status and the Botox appointments that come with the territory. I wasn't bitter about any of this. I loved them. I still do. But I understood them. I understood that for people like my parents, life is a performance. Success isn't just about being successful. It's about being seen being successful. The right house, the right car, the right vacation photos, the right children with the right credentials. I fit that description. I was their daughter with the business degree from a good school and the promising future in New York. And then I came home, and I was their daughter who'd come home, which was slightly less impressive but still acceptable because I was building something. I was launching Clarity Digital. The idea came to me while I was still in Manhattan. I noticed that a lot of small businesses and nonprofits had 0 digital presence. Not a bad website, no website at all, no social media strategy, no email marketing, nothing. They were bleeding potential customers because they couldn't figure out how to reach people online. So I thought, why not help them? Why not start a company that specializes in building and managing digital presence for small, locally focused businesses? I was 26 when I incorporated Clarity Digital. I was 26 when I got my first 3 clients. I was 27 when I hired my first employee, a guy named Derek, who'd been working in SEO and was looking for something more stable than freelancing. By the time I turned 28, I had 8 full-time employees and a waiting list of clients. We were doing good work, real work, websites that actually converted visitors into customers, social media strategies that actually grew engagement. I was proud of it. I was proud of myself. My parents were proud too in their way. They'd tell their friends about Ashley's little digital company at dinner parties. My mom would mention it to her book club. My dad would bring it up during golf rounds. It was a good story. Their daughter, the entrepreneur. Not as impressive as if I'd been a surgeon or a lawyer, but entrepreneurship was trendy. It worked for their narrative. Everything was good. Better than good. I was dating someone, a guy named Brandon who worked in commercial real estate, which delighted my parents because it meant they had professional connections and could give him business advice whether he wanted it or not. I had friends. I had routine. Every Sunday I'd have dinner with my parents at their house. Every other Saturday I could meet Derek and some of our employees for drinks downtown. I remember, specifically, a Sunday dinner in March, about 2 years ago now. We were sitting in my parents' dining room, the one with the crystal chandelier and the mahogany table that seats 14. My mom had made her famous garlic shrimp pasta. My dad was talking about a commercial property development in South End. Brandon was there, and he was being appropriately charming and interested in everything my dad said. It was all very normal, very perfect. My mom turned to me and said, "Honey, how many employees do you have now?" 7? 8, I said. "We just hired someone last week." 8, she repeated, nodding approvingly. "That's wonderful. You're really doing something special with that company." And that was it. That was the compliment. That was the moment I felt like I'd finally achieved something that was worth noting in my parents' world. And I held on to it. I held on to that moment like it meant something. But here's the thing nobody tells you about building a successful business. The moment it starts working, the moment you actually start making money and growing and proving that your idea wasn't stupid, is the exact moment when something else has to go wrong. It's like the universe is balancing a cosmic scale. You can't have it all good at once. Something has to give. In my case, it was my business partner. I didn't tell anyone about Derek for a long time. I didn't tell my parents, I didn't tell Brandon. I didn't even really acknowledge it to myself until it was too late to do anything about it. But Derek had been embezzling from Clarity Digital for almost 8 months. He was taking client payments and routing them into a separate account. Small amounts at first. 500 here, 1,000 there. But then it got bigger. By the time I finally figured it out, he'd stolen approximately $87,000 from my company. I found out on a Tuesday in June. I was doing quarterly bookkeeping, and I noticed some discrepancies in our accounts. I pulled the transaction history, and my stomach just dropped, because there it was, in black and white, Derek's name on wire transfers to an account I didn't recognize, payments that didn't correspond to any services rendered, money that was just gone. I called Derek into my office that afternoon. I was shaking so hard I could barely hold the papers in my hands. "What are these?" I asked him, sliding the printouts across my desk. He looked at them for a long moment, and then he did something I will never forget. He smiled. Not apologetically, not nervously. He smiled like he found the whole thing amusing. "You really didn't know?" he said. "Know what, Derek? What are you talking about?" "Come on, Ashley," he said, leaning back in his chair like he had all the time in the world. "You're making good money. The company's successful. You've got clients lined up. I figured you wouldn't notice if I took a little off the top." "That's not your money," I said. My voice didn't sound like my voice. It sounded thin and high and desperate. "Neither is it really yours," he said. "You inherited all the right opportunities. Good family, good school, good connections. I worked my ass off to get where I am, and I'm making what, 35 grand a year? Meanwhile, you're sitting on $1 million business that could have belonged to anyone who had the luck to be born into the right circumstances." I didn't know what to say. I still don't know what to say to that. He stole from me. He stole from the company we built together. And when I confronted him about it, he turned it into some kind of moral argument about privilege and fairness. "You need to leave," I told him. "Today, right now." He stood up, grabbed his jacket, and walked out without another word. And that was the last time I saw Derek. But it wasn't the last time his theft affected my life. Not even close. After Derek left, everything started collapsing in slow motion. I didn't tell anyone what happened. Not Brandon, not my parents, not even my closest friend, Jennifer, who'd known me since high school. I just went to work every day, acted like everything was fine, and spent my nights staring at my laptop screen trying to figure out how to tell my clients and my employees that my company had just lost nearly $90,000. The money wasn't the worst part. I mean, it was bad, it was devastating, but it wasn't the worst part. The worst part was that I'd trusted him. Derek had been with me since the beginning. He'd believed in Clarity Digital when it was just an idea I couldn't shut up about. He'd worked late nights for less money than he deserved, and then he'd stolen from us, from me. I called an accountant the day after Derek left. Her name was Patricia, and she came highly recommended by my business attorney. Patricia took one look at the numbers and let out a long, slow whistle. "How long has this been going on?" she asked, her reading glasses sliding down her nose. "About 8 months that I can find evidence of," I said. "But it could have been longer. I don't know. I wasn't paying close enough attention." That was the thing that killed me. It was my fault. I'd been so focused on growing the business, on hiring the right people and landing new clients, that I hadn't been watching the money closely enough. I'd trusted Derek to handle the accounts because he was good with numbers, and because, and I hate admitting this, because I wanted to believe he was trustworthy. I wanted to believe that not everyone was going to screw me. Patricia spent 2 weeks going through all of our financials. When she was done, the number was actually worse than I'd originally thought. Derek had taken $103,000. $103,000. "What are my options?" Iz asked her, sitting in her office on a Thursday afternoon in late June. The sun was streaming through her windows, and it felt obscene that the world was so beautiful when everything was falling apart. "You could press charges," Patricia said. "That's embezzlement. It's a felony in North Carolina. But you'd need to be prepared for a lawsuit. He'd probably claim he was owed back pay or bonuses or something. It would be messy and expensive, and there's no guarantee you'd recover the money. And if I don't press charges? Then you take the loss. Write it off as a business expense. It hurts your year-end numbers, but you survive." I didn't press charges. I know now that I should have, that not pressing charges was a mistake, but at the time I just wanted the whole thing to go away. I wanted to pretend it had never happened. So I told Derek, through my lawyer in a tersely worded email, that he should consider his severance as restitution, and that if he ever came near my company again, I would press charges and pursue every legal avenue available to me. He never responded. But here's what happened next: the lie. I found out about my parents' lie 3 weeks after Derek left. I was at the country club with my mom for lunch. We were sitting in the dining room, the one with the enormous windows overlooking the golf course, eating salads and drinking white wine. My mom was telling me about some drama involving the board of her nonprofit. Apparently, someone had misappropriated funds for personal use, and the board was considering whether to press charges or handle it quietly. "These things are always so messy," my mom was saying, dabbing her lips with her napkin. "I just think sometimes it's better to keep these matters private. You don't want people talking." That's when I heard it. From the table behind us. A woman's voice, I think it was Margaret Hutchins, though I'm not entirely sure, saying to her friend, "Did you hear about the Chen's daughter? The one with the business? Apparently she's been in rehab for 6 months. They just told people now because she's finally recovering." I froze. My fork was halfway to my mouth and I just froze. My mom didn't even look at me. She just kept eating her salad like she hadn't heard anything. But I could see her shoulders get tighter. I could see her jaw clench. "Mom," I said quietly, "what is she talking about?" My mom set down her fork. She took a sip of her wine. She was giving herself time, I realized. Time to construct a response. "Let's not discuss this here," she said. We didn't discuss it there. We finished our salads in silence, and then we went home to the house in Myers Park, and my mom finally told me the truth. Or rather, she told me the lie that she and my dad had been telling everyone. "We didn't know how to explain the situation," she said. We were sitting in her living room. My dad was in his study, but I could hear him moving around in there, listening. "You weren't at Sunday dinner for several weeks. You seemed distracted. You weren't answering your phone as much. People were asking questions and we..." So you told them I was in rehab? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. For substance abuse? Mom, I don't even drink that much. We know that, she said, but we needed an explanation that would satisfy people's curiosity. And rehab, well, rehab is sympathetic. It's a health issue. It's not a moral failing. People understand rehab. They feel compassion for people in recovery. I stood up. I walked to the window. I couldn't look at her. How many people did you tell? I asked. It's not about the number of people, my mom said. It's about managing the narrative. Once people understand that you've been struggling with something and you're taking steps to address it, they stop asking questions. They move on. And now, when you're back to normal, they'll see you as someone who had the courage to get help. I didn't need help, I said. I didn't have a problem. I was dealing with a business situation. My dad came out of his study. He looked tired. Ash, he said, sit down. No, I said. No, I'm not going to sit down. You lied about me. You told everyone in your entire social circle that I was a drug addict. Do you understand how humiliating that is? We were trying to protect you, my dad said. Protect me from what? From the truth? From people knowing that something difficult happened in my business? From judgment, my mom said quietly. People judge business failure. They judge it harshly, but they sympathize with illness. They sympathize with recovery. I left their house that afternoon and drove straight to my rental on Wendover Avenue. I didn't cry until I got inside. And then I sat on my couch with Bentley, who licked my face because he didn't understand why I was sad, and I cried for 2 hours. The lie had already started spreading. I could feel it, like a tumor. By the next week, I was getting emails from people I hadn't talked to in years, people from high school and college, saying things like, "So proud of you for getting help," and "sending love during your recovery." One girl I barely remembered from cheerleading sent me a long message about her own journey with addiction and how she'd overcome it, and how she understood what I was going through. I didn't respond to any of them. I couldn't, because how do you tell people that the thing they're sympathizing with didn't actually happen? Work became unbearable. My employees knew something was wrong, but they didn't know what. I was snapping at people over nothing. I was working 18-hour days and still feeling like I wasn't accomplishing anything. Without Derek handling the accounts, I had to hire a new bookkeeper, and I had to do a lot of the administrative work myself, which meant I wasn't doing the actual work that I loved, the work of building strategies for clients, of solving problems, of creating something meaningful. By August, 3 months after Derek left, I'd lost 2 clients. Both of them said it was for budget reasons, but I knew it was because my work had suffered. I wasn't as sharp. I wasn't as focused. I was a ghost moving through my own company. Brandon noticed. He brought it up on a Friday night when we were supposed to be going out for dinner, but I'd canceled because I had work to do. "You're not okay," he said. We were sitting in my living room. I was on my laptop. He was on the couch looking at his phone, but really, he was just looking at me. "You haven't been okay for weeks. Is it the business? Is it something with your parents?" "I'm fine," I said. "You're not fine. You're working all the time. You're not sleeping. You're miserable. Talk to me." And I wanted to. I really did. But I didn't know where to start. How do I explain that my business partner stole from me? How do I explain that my parents lied about me to everyone in their social circle? How do I explain that I'm so humiliated and angry and scared that I can barely function? So instead I said, "I just need some time to get things organized." "How much time?" he asked. "I don't know, a few weeks." He didn't push, but I could feel him pulling away. I could feel the distance growing between us, and I couldn't stop it. I didn't even try. By September, Brandon had basically moved back into his own apartment. We were still technically dating, but we were broken. We both knew it. We were just waiting for one of us to have the courage to say it out loud. Then, on a Tuesday morning, my phone rang. It was a woman named Lisa Chen. She had the same last name as me, which was unusual enough to make me answer. "Hi, is this Ashley Chen?" she asked. "Yes," I said. "Who is this?" "My name is Lisa Chen. I'm a freelance journalist and I'm writing a piece about young female entrepreneurs in the Charlotte area. Your name came up multiple times in my research, and I'd really like to interview you about Clarity Digital. I think your story is incredibly inspiring. I didn't say anything for a moment. Hello? She said. Are you there? Yes, I said. I'm here, but I think you might have the wrong person. I'm not that inspiring. That's not what I've heard, she said. I've talked to several of your employees and clients. They all say the same thing, that you're someone who's overcome real adversity, that you've built something meaningful despite facing significant challenges. I'd love to hear your story in your own words. My stomach dropped. I knew, in that moment, exactly what had happened. Somehow, the lie about rehab had transformed into something else. It had become a story about overcoming adversity. It had become a narrative about resilience and strength. And now a journalist was calling to interview me about it. I appreciate your interest, I said carefully, but I'm not ready to do interviews right now. I completely understand, she said. Why don't I send you my email and you can reach out when you're ready? I think people need to hear stories like yours. I think it matters. After I hung up with her, I sat in my office for a long time, and that's when I realized the lie wasn't just a lie anymore. It had become something bigger. It had become a story that people believed, and that story was going to haunt me. 3 weeks later, Forbes called. When I saw the email from Forbes in my inbox, I felt like I was going to be sick. I read it 5 times, hoping I'd misunderstood, but the message was clear. They wanted to feature me in their 30 under 30 list. They wanted to tell the story of how I'd overcome a substance abuse issue and built a $1 million business. They wanted to call me a recovery hero. The email was from someone named David Park, the editor of the Forbes 30 under 30 list for the Southeast. He said he'd been impressed by my story and wanted to do a feature. He said I exemplified the kind of resilience and determination that Forbes wanted to celebrate. I didn't respond. I couldn't. Because I was sitting at my desk, staring at an email from one of the most prestigious business publications in the world, and they were building their entire interest in me on a lie that my parents had invented. That night, I called Brandon. I need to see you, I said. Okay, he said. He sounded surprised. We hadn't spent much time together in weeks. When? Now. Can you come over now? He came over and I told him everything. I told him about Derek. I told him about my parents' lie. I told him about the journalist. And I told him about Forbes. When I was done, he just sat there processing. So you're saying, he said slowly, that Forbes wants to feature you based on a completely false story? Yes. And your parents told everyone that you were in rehab, even though you weren't? Yes. Ashley, he said, that's insane. You need to tell Forbes the truth. And say what? Thanks for your interest, but I should clarify that I'm not actually a recovery hero. I'm just a business owner whose employees stole from her and whose parents lied about it. Yes, he said, exactly that. That'll destroy everything, I said. My reputation, my parents' reputation, my business, everything. Your reputation is already being built on a lie, he said. Don't you see that? The longer you let this go, the deeper you dig yourself in. You need to come clean. I knew he was right. But the thought of telling Forbes, of telling all those people who'd been calling to congratulate me, because yes, people were calling, people who believed the lie. The thought of admitting that my entire narrative was false felt impossible. I need to think, I said. Don't think too long, Brandon said, because the longer you wait, the worse this is going to be when it comes out. After he left, I sat on my couch with Bentley and I made a decision. I wasn't going to tell Forbes. I wasn't going to tell anyone. I was going to let the lie stand, and I was going to build my company into something so successful, so undeniably real, that the lie wouldn't matter anymore. The truth about my recovery wouldn't be important because I would have actually recovered. I would have actually built something worth celebrating. It was the worst decision I could have made. Finai chest. It took 3 weeks for everything to explode. I didn't respond to David Park's email from Forbes. I just let it sit in my inbox, reading it over and over, trying to convince myself that I could somehow make this work. Maybe I could give them the rehab version of my story. Maybe I could lean into it, make it real somehow by sheer force of will. Maybe if I worked hard enough, built the company big enough, The lie would become irrelevant. That was the delusion I was living in when Jennifer called me. Jennifer had been my best friend since junior high. We'd been through everything together: first boyfriends, college rejections, failed internships. She knew me better than I knew myself, and she was furious. "Why didn't you tell me?" she said. We were sitting at a coffee shop downtown, and she wasn't bothering to keep her voice down. "Why did I have to hear from Sarah Mitchell that you were in rehab?" "Sarah Mitchell, Ashley. We haven't talked to her in 8 years." "I wasn't in rehab," I said quietly. "I know you weren't in rehab," Jennifer snapped. "But apparently everyone else in Charlotte thinks you were. My mom asked me about it at book club." "My mom? Do you understand how awkward that was? Having to explain that no, my best friend wasn't a drug addict, her parents just made that up to save face." "I didn't make it up," I said. "My parents did." "And you've been letting them lie about you for months," Jennifer said. "Ashley, this is insane. You need to tell Forbes the truth. You need to tell everyone the truth." "If I do that, I destroy everything," I said. "My reputation, my parents' reputation, my business." "Your reputation is already destroyed," Jennifer interrupted. "It's just destroyed in a different direction. You're building your entire company on a foundation of lies. How long do you think that's going to last?" She was right. Of course she was right. But I wasn't ready to face it yet. After Jennifer left, I went back to my office and stared at my computer screen. I had emails from 3 different reporters asking to interview me about my recovery. I had messages from people I hadn't spoken to in years, offering support and congratulations. I had a waiting list of new clients who wanted to work with the woman who'd overcome such adversity. The lie had grown into something massive. It had taken on a life of its own. That night, I made a decision that I still can't fully explain. I was going to tell the truth. Not to Forbes, not yet, but to my parents. I was going to make them understand what they'd done, and I was going to force them to help me undo it. I called them and asked them to meet me at my house. I said it was urgent. My mom sounded worried on the phone. They arrived at 7 o'clock on a Wednesday evening. My dad was in his golf clothes. My mom had come straight from a nonprofit board meeting, still wearing her pearls and her professional smile. They sat on my couch like they were waiting for me to tell them I was engaged or pregnant, something that would reflect well on them. "I need you to call everyone you told," I said. I didn't sit down. I was too angry to sit down. "Everyone at the country club, everyone at church, everyone at your nonprofit boards. You need to call them and tell them the truth." My mom's face went pale. "Ashley, that's not possible," she said. "Why not?" "Because it would be humiliating," my dad said. "For all of us." "It's already humiliating," I said. "For me. Do you understand that? Forbes is about to publish a feature about how I overcame a substance abuse issue that I never had. Reporters are calling me asking about my recovery journey. People are sending me messages telling me how brave I am for getting help that I never needed. And you're worried about being embarrassed?" "We were trying to protect you," my mom said. This was her go-to defense. "We were trying to make sure people understood that what happened wasn't a reflection on you as a person." "What happened," I said, "was that Derek stole money from my company. That's it. That's the story. It's not pretty, but it's the truth. And instead of letting me tell that truth, you invented a lie that's now spreading through the entire city like a virus." My dad stood up. "You want us to call every single person we know and admit that we lied about our own daughter? Do you understand how that makes us look?" "I don't care how it makes you look," I said. My voice was shaking. "For once in your lives, I don't care about your image or your reputation or how things look to the people at the country club. I care about my life, and you're destroying it." My mom started crying, real tears, not the performative kind she used at charity galas. "I'm sorry," she said. "I'm so sorry. We thought we were doing the right thing." "You thought you were doing the right thing for yourselves," I said, "not for me." My parents left my house that night without agreeing to do anything. My dad was angry, my mom was devastated, and I was alone on my couch with Bentley, feeling like I'd just burned the last bridge connecting me to my family. The next morning, I did something I should have done weeks ago. I called David Park at Forbes and asked if we could talk on the phone. He called me back within an hour. He was friendly, excited, ready to discuss the feature. "I need to tell you something," I said. "Before we move forward with this, you need to know the truth about my story." There was a pause on the other end of the line. "What do you mean?" he asked. I told him everything. I told him about Derek's embezzlement. I told him about my parents' lie. I told him about how the rehab narrative had grown from a family secret into something that half of Charlotte believed. I told him that the story he wanted to feature wasn't real. When I finished, there was a long silence. "So there was no rehab," he said finally. "No rehab," I confirmed, "but there was business fraud." "Yes, embezzlement to be specific. Around $103,000. Another silence. I could almost hear him recalculating the narrative in his head. "That's actually a better story," he said. "I wasn't expecting that." "What?" I said. "The recovery from addiction angle is compelling, but it's been done 1,000 times, he said. But a young female entrepreneur who built a successful digital company had a trusted employee steal from her and then face the additional complication of her family trying to manage the narrative around what happened. That's actually more interesting. That's more real." "You want to do a feature on the real story?" I asked, not quite believing what I was hearing. "I want to do a feature on your story," he said, "the actual one. Is that something you'd be willing to do?" I said yes. I don't know why I said yes, but I did. Maybe because I was tired of lying. Maybe because I was tired of carrying the weight of my parents' fabrication. Maybe because I was finally ready to own what had actually happened to me, instead of pretending it was something it wasn't. We scheduled the interview for the following week. David sent me a list of questions. He wanted to know about Derek, about my parents' lie, about the journalists who'd called believing the false narrative, about Forbes itself calling based on misinformation. He wanted the whole, messy, complicated truth. The day before the interview, I got a call from my dad. "Your mother and I have been talking," he said. "We're going to do it. We're going to call people and tell them the truth." I didn't know what to say. "Why?" I asked. "Because Jennifer called your mother," he said. "She told her that what we'd done was cruel, and that if we didn't fix it, we'd lose you. And your mother realized she was right. We were so focused on our own image that we didn't see what it was doing to you." "It's going to be embarrassing," I said. "I know," my dad said, "but you're our daughter. You're more important than our image." I cried after I hung up with him. I cried because I'd been waiting for him to say something like that for years, and I'd given up hope that he ever would. The Forbes interview happened on a Tuesday afternoon. David came to my office with a photographer. We talked for 2 hours about Clarity Digital, about Derek, about the embezzlement and the aftermath. I told him about my parents' lie, about the journalists who'd called, about how the false narrative had almost become my real narrative. "What do you want people to know?" David asked me near the end of the interview. "What's the most important thing for the Forbes audience to understand?" I thought about that for a long moment. "I want them to know that you can do everything right and still have things go wrong," I said. "I did everything I was supposed to do. I got a good education. I built a business. I hired people I trusted. And then someone I trusted stole from me. And my parents lied about why I was struggling. And suddenly, I was caught in a narrative that wasn't mine. The truth is, sometimes life is messy and complicated and doesn't fit into a neat recovery story. And that's okay. That's real." The article came out 2 months later. Forbes titled it, "The Startup That Almost Wasn't: How One Entrepreneur Turned Betrayal into Clarity." They didn't shy away from the lie. They actually made it part of the story, how the false narrative had almost consumed the real one, and how I'd chosen truth over convenience. The response was immediate and overwhelming. I got hundreds of messages from people saying things like, "Thank you for being honest," and "I needed to hear that life doesn't have to be a perfect recovery story." I got messages from other entrepreneurs who dealt with embezzlement, from people whose families had lied about them, from people who were tired of performing their lives on social media. And I got a call from Derek. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "I saw the Forbes article," he said. His voice sounded different, older, smaller. "Okay," I said. "I'm sorry," he said. "I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, and I'm not asking for it. But I'm sorry. I was angry and stupid and I took it out on you. And then when you didn't press charges, I thought I'd gotten away with something, but I didn't. I've been living with this for months and it's destroyed me. I wanted you to know that." I didn't know what to say to that either, so I just said, "I'm glad you're dealing with it." "I'm seeing a therapist," he said, "working through my stuff. I wanted to at least try to make restitution. I know I can't pay back the full amount, but I can start. I can send you payments." "Okay," I said. "That would be good." After I hung up, I realized I wasn't angry anymore. Not at Derek, not at my parents, not at myself. I was just tired and relieved. My parents did call people, just like my dad said they would. It was painful and awkward and humiliating for them, but they did it. My mom told her book club. My dad told his golf buddies. They sent emails to the country club explaining that they'd misrepresented the situation, that there had been no rehab, that they'd made a mistake in trying to manage the narrative. The responses were mixed. Some people were understanding. Some people were judgmental. But most people, I think, just didn't care that much. They moved on. Because that's what people do. Brandon and I broke up officially 2 weeks after the Forbes article came out. It wasn't dramatic. We just realized that we wanted different things, and that the person I was becoming wasn't compatible with the person he needed. I don't regret it. I think we both knew it was over long before we actually ended it. Clarity Digital is doing better than ever. I hired a new bookkeeper and a new account manager. We're up to 12 employees now. We're profitable and growing, and I actually like coming to work every day. As for the lie, it's still out there somewhere. There are probably people in Charlotte who still believe I went to rehab. There are probably people who think I'm a recovery hero, and I've made peace with that. I can't control what people believe. I can only control what's true about me. The last time I saw my parents was at Sunday dinner 2 weeks ago. My mom made her garlic shrimp pasta. My dad told a story about a client. It was normal and comfortable and real. As I was leaving, my mom pulled me aside. "I'm proud of you," she said. "Not for the business, though that's impressive. I'm proud of you for telling the truth when it would have been easier to lie." I hugged her, and for the first time in a long time, it felt like a real hug. Here's what I learned. The truth is always going to be more complicated than the lie. It's always going to be messier and harder and less convenient. But it's yours, and that matters more than anything else.